Welcome to the Rethreading Lives Podcast, where we talk about how to take your threads of harm and through the rethreaded process, transform them into something that actually helps you reach your potential. We'll talk with different leaders in our city and our country and find out what they're doing. You'll walk away from listening to this podcast with useful insights and captivating stories on how you yourself can rethread your life and your business. I'm Kristin Keen, and this is the Rethreading Lives Podcast. Hello, Rethreading Lives podcast listeners. Today is recap day, where I get to sit in a room by myself, watch videos, and record my reaction. It's always such a weird but fun time for me. Today, we get to recap MaryAnne Rodriguez, who is one of my favorite leaders in Jacksonville, Florida. She runs a brokerage called Root Realty. It's an all-female realty company. She is an entrepreneur. She has recently started a hat travel company. She has bought and sold tons of real estate. She's a mom of 3. She has some kids with some special challenges. She talks through that. She's an athlete. She was a runner. She has helped her mom walk through cancer. She is just an exceptional human being who, honestly, I don't know how she gets all that she gets done in life. So we're going to learn from MaryAnne. We're going to do our recap. So let's get going.
My mom somehow never missed anything. And that's like mind blowing to me, having 3 kids now and owning a business. I'm like, I struggle to just get from like A to B and like make my kids dinner some days. And my mom didn't miss anything we were a part of. And that's mind-blowing to me. I think too, just spiritually, she instilled a lot into us, that trusting in God, trusting and having faith, even when things weren't easy, is something that has really shaped, I think, who I am today and hopefully how I raise our children. She didn't really let us see the hard. Like, we didn't know we were poor. We didn't really know we were missing anything. Because I think we had so much love that our house felt really full of joy, really full of light. Our house was the house all of our friends came to. And looking back, I'm like, they had everything. Like, they had the pools, they had the snacks, they had, and I'm like, what did our house have? Because we had a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. And,
really?
Yeah.
And so you all shared a room?
So we all shared a room. And then my mom took one room and cut it in half and put a wall up. And so there was no closet, but it was like the size of a closet. And all that could fit was a twin bed that had 2 drawers underneath. And that became my room when I got old enough, because she was like, now that you're a teenager, you need your own space. So we made a 3rd bedroom, sort of. But 1 bathroom, so that was fun, trying to get ready for school. And but our house was just really full of joy.
This is what I love about MaryAnne and her story is in the rethreaded process, we talk about community. And some people maybe think that's a lot of people in your life, pouring into you. And MaryAnne talks a lot just about how her mom was a single mom, 2 kids, raised them, and still managed to be there for her. And like what her mom instilled in her, that MaryAnne is now experiencing those threads of good, of hope, of faith that her mom sewed into her. And I wish we could interview her mom, actually. I bet she's really amazing. I just want to have her finish out talking about her family and love.
I don't know how she did that, but she did. And I really feel like despite a lot of the hard, I had a really, really happy childhood. And there was always this idea in the back of my head that, if I were to be the best, if I were to do the right thing, if I were to get all A's, blah, 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 that my dad would come back around. And I worked really, really hard.
Okay, 2 things in this. The first is her mom must have had this amazing cut capability to what we talk about rethreaded process, the sphere. And the bigger your sphere is, the more that you're able to hold all the hard in life and hold all the good with life, and you hold it with love. And when you pour into the ingredients of a rethreaded process, your capacity to hold life grows. So I feel like her mom must be one of those people that has a great capacity to hold the hard and hold all the good with lots of gentleness and love that allowed her kids to experience, this life that was from the outward poor, but filled with love, right?
And as a child, that's really confusing when he doesn't come back around. But my mom, never talked badly about him, never made it where like there could have been way more emotion and way more hardship. She was really, really positive for us. And I think that probably changed everything, because had we seen the grief and the hardship that she probably experienced on a regular basis, just knowing how hard it was, not seeing that, I think, just made us we didn't realize how hard it was.
You just saw your mom as she was your rock.
Yeah. Yep. She still is.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? I love that her mom never let blame and shame win, that her mom could have gotten lost in blame and shame and allowed that to shrink her sphere and pass on bitterness and hardships to her kids, but she didn't. She chose joy, took responsibility for the situation and owned it and made the best of it. It's beautiful. And for the love, what is this picture? Why do they have to pause it on these pictures? Oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it's a very awkward picture of me to start this clip off. Who knew that leading a podcast would be this awkward? You'd have to put yourself out there so awkwardly. In the rethreading process, we have blame and shame over here. And then on the other side, we have how to move out of blame and shame and expand your spheres to take responsibility. And we kind of define that as the ability to choose your response. As I'm listening to you, you're choosing you have capacity inside you to choose your response. And so far we've identified 3 things: imagination, courage, and empathy that move you out of blame and shame. But I wonder if thankfulness needs to be in that, because it seems to be such a role.
It is.
In giving and increasing your capacity to hold things in life.
I think grief and trauma can open your eyes in a beautiful way to appreciate when the grief is less or when the trauma is less. And it I don't know, I feel like it allows you to see the light in really dark situations. When you can really sit back and think of we're going through this really hard thing, but then there's these 5 small little things that are really great, and it is, I feel like it is a very conscious choice.
So I'm just going to pause here because this is something I struggle with. So, when you're going through something hard, it is like this blanket over your life, right? And if you do not practice thankfulness, the blanket wins, right? The darkness wins, because there are little spots, little things in your life all the time to be thankful for. And if you are wallowing in blame and shame, self-pity, you will miss it. And I miss it all the time. I think that's why I learned so much from the people around me that are filled with thankfulness, because their eyes and their heart automatically go to the thankfulness part of the situation. And it's not, I want to also be clear that MaryAnne is not toxic positivity. It's a conscious choice to, even in hard things, to see the good and acknowledge and hold the good.
To be honest, I used to kind of make fun of people that did affirmations and gratitude, wrote down, and I'm the last few years that's played a huge role in my life.
So you write stuff. You write.
I do.
What do you have some examples?
Yeah. So I start most mornings with a devotional, and after that, I either write down 3 things that I'm grateful for, and they, can be as complex as something big that's happening, or just I'm thankful that my coffee is hot this morning. Whatever it is, I try to find 3 things in the moment that I'm grateful for. And affirmations too. There's still some that I'm I would never say that about myself. It makes me cringe a little bit. But then there's some that have really been impactful for me. And I think one of the bigger ones is just the worthiness piece, because I tried for so long to impress and do enough to feel like I'm worthy to be, for my dad to be in my life. And I really feel like those small actions can really add up and really adjust your mentality. But again, I was not a believer in them.
So this is, I'm sorry, I have a very unique lens where I see life from, but as she's talking, I just did a training on human trafficking this morning, and I was talking about the perception of choice and how traffickers look for the perfect storm of vulnerabilities. And one of those major vulnerabilities is the need to belong, the need to be loved, the need to be accepted. We all have it, right? Maybe we just didn't happen to meet this person at this time who would exploit that vulnerability. And I heard this quote recently that the obstacle is the way. And I wonder if you can change that a little bit and be like, the wound is the way. Like, where there is great woundedness, it has also through the wound, you've opened up and you're vulnerable, and it's a chance to be soft and heal and trust and let in thankfulness through those vulnerable parts, through our wounds, and with people that are trustworthy.
For a very long time.
I know. And then we go through hard things and you're like, oh, maybe they were right. You know? So we just had our Women Empowering Women, which is now it's become more like of an educational networking event. And we had an hour class on purpose. You know, we were talking about it. And especially women, we struggle with. So how I've been teaching it and like trying to frame it in my own life is that like we are each born with a specific way that we bring love into the world. That's our purpose, right? I feel like my purpose is to activate and envision the potential inside people. I like bring energy, a spark. I don't bring structure or organization. I bring like a tidal wave of energy.
Yes, you do.
Into the room. Sometimes destructive, whatever. It goes both ways.
Never.
But it's how you love. And that we all have these roles in our life. Like, I'm not a mom, but I'm an aunt. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a company owner. And I bring my purpose into all my roles. And my role is not my purpose. And I feel like my whole life I've kind of flip-flopped that. Like, I've always made my role my purpose, and that leads to all kinds of problems in my life. I still believe that, and I still struggle with that. Your role isn't your purpose. Your worth isn't your work. Your worth isn't your motherhood. You are innately given a wiring of who you are. And I'm thinking of a Bible verse that is like, stop striving. And I wonder if that's part of the striving that I struggle with so much, right? The striving to be different than how I'm created, the striving to not be too much, to be different, to suddenly be organized and steady instead of who I am. A lot of striving instead of releasing my potential.
A few years back, I made this commitment to myself and my kids that I would pick them up every day from school. And my mom helps a lot, my husband helps a lot, but I really wanted that time. And when I first made the commitment, I was there. I was physically picking them up, but I was on the phone. I was responding to emails in the car line. I was still not really there. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward to like the last 2 years, I'm like, no one is more important in this moment than these kids that I'm picking up that are so excited to tell me about their day. And so my phone connects to my car, and so I'll see the calls coming in on the screen, and I'm like, I don't care if it's the president of the United States. They are not as important as this story that I've heard 6 times already that Isla really wants to tell me again. And that's been like a big shift.
So I love this because one of the elements of the Rethreaded process is time, and to be intentional with your time. And as she's telling this story, this is like the best example of being intentional with your time. You can't get back time. You can't buy it back. You can't go back. And like, she's making this conscious decision for this time period. My kids are the most important thing to me in the whole world. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. And I also can see how hard that would be as a business owner. Such a good example.
I used to be like, that's a lead. That's an opportunity. That's like, I need to answer that. And now it's like, no, I need this. And I'm never going to get this moment again, because tomorrow it's going to be a different story about a different kid, and
the lead will be there.
And if it's not, it wasn't meant to be. And And I would say this to like new business owners too, is a lot of people were like, when you start a business, like take every opportunity you get, like take, work your way up. And it's like, I would say like be intentional from the very beginning. Like do not just work with any or everybody. And I did that. And I learned the hard way. I was like verbally abused by people. I was treated poorly. I was, taken advantage of. Like there were lots of things that I wish I didn't learn. And if I could say, like, if I could go back, I would say, no, like work with people that value you. And there's that reciprocal respect. Because now I feel like my customers understand. They're like, oh yeah, of course you have a family. Of course you're eating dinner. Like you're not going to answer my call. And I'm not a neurosurgeon. No one is dying. Yes, there's timelines we have to meet and I will always meet them, but I'm not going to be attached to my phone for every beck and call and everything is not an emergency.
I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. I feel like I'm totally 100% addicted to my phone over really nothing. Checking my emails, scrolling on Facebook, checking my eBay side hustle, like addicted. It's a panic when I'm not with my phone. And I think it's literally killing me. It's literally stealing my potential, I think. And I think that it's doing that to so many people around me. And it's like kind of normalized now. Like everyone is doing that. I went on vacation with my family and I realized there's points where we're all sitting around on our phone. And I'm like, it's slowly getting all of us and we can't get that time back. Yeah. And we had this conversation on our family vacation of what invention has changed your life more than anything. And it was a hands down easy. It was our phone. It was the internet on our phone that changed our life dramatically.
Growing up, my mom was, and still today is everything. She was mom and dad. So my biological dad left when I was 4. And my mom I have an older brother and a younger brother, and she raised us 100% on her own, financially, really? Emotionally, in all the ways. And, now being a parent, I look back on so many things and so many decisions that she made. And at the time, I couldn't understand why, or it felt unfair, or, it felt hard. And now I understand it. Oh man. My mom is the strongest person I've ever met. And I think that her strength trickled down through all of us. She raised us on her own and I would say did a really, really freaking good job. My brothers are incredible people. I'm proud of where I've, come in life and in all the ways, not just business, right? And her challenges didn't stop after we left the house. She was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And I think that's when we kind of first met. Yeah. And
so where was she living at then?
She was in Jacksonville.
Oh, she was in Jacksonville.
Yeah, okay. She moved here to be close to me when I started having children. And she's been a huge part in helping raise our kids as well. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. I'll never forget the day I was leading a sales meeting at Root Realty and I get a call and she knew when our sales meetings were. So she wouldn't just call. So I stepped out to take the call and she just told me where she was in the car in the parking lot of the hospital. And I just knew something was really wrong. And so she shared, she had stage 4 breast cancer and it had metastasized. It had spread to her hip as well. And so she went through chemo and radiation. And at the time, we had purchased the house across the street, literally from her, to be right there.
There are so many amazing people in this world, right? Like her mom is probably one of the most strongest, loving people in the world, and nobody knows her, right? She's like this undiscovered treasure. This is why I love the podcast so much, because you get to uncover all these everyday people doing these amazing things, pouring into these rethreaded process ingredients, living their life with the capacity to hold life so well. these are the people that I want to know, and I want you to know, because they're doing the thing right beside us, right? Nothing exceptional, just deeply good people doing their best. Oh, it's so beautiful.
It was just this kind of weird, change of roles where, my mom had taken care of us in the most ultimate way, because she was mom and dad and provider. I mean, no kind of support in any way from anybody. And then the tables turned where she couldn't work. She couldn't hardly eat. She couldn't basically survive on her own without this incredible combination of poisonous, drugs that helped get rid of the cancer. And so our roles kind of switched, and I just experienced this whole thing of what it really meant to have selfless, unconditional love. I mean, I always knew I loved my mom, but to become the mom in that moment while I had, 2 young kids, it was just the most kind of awakening experience of what it means to really love someone in the most incredible way. And so she is now almost 6 years cancer-free, which is has been incredible to celebrate every year. And it definitely played a big part in our relationship, where, so much of it was hard, but then now being on the other side of it, just being able to reflect back on just some of the beauty that was present as well.
My dad was just in the hospital having surgery. He's fine. He's doing great. But just being in that hard thing together with my dad and my stepmom, taking care of my mom during knee surgery, the flipping of the switch where you're taking care of your parents, which is devastating on this one hand, and then on this other hand, so beautiful. And I loved that my dad and my stepmom let me into that, and my mom let me into that, and let me be with them and help them. So if you have any advice on the flipping of the switch and taking care of your parents and the good and the hard that came out of that, I'd love to hear. So thank you for listening to this recap with MaryAnne. I encourage you to listen to the entire podcast. There's so many good moments. When she talks about her kids, and her kids have some physical challenges, I mean, it is so beautiful. And I just feel like there's so many parents out there who need to hear her perspective. So thank you guys so much for listening to me today on this relatively awkward but fun event.